If you look at the past 50 years under this current monetary system, the number of countries that have gone from developing to developed, you can count on like one hand. There's no countries in Latin America that went from developing developed. In fact, there's some that arguably went from developed to developing. Um, the same thing's true for Africa. We have none that went from developing to developed. And almost every single developed country today developed back under a hard money standard. But I think that the more people realize the injustice of that situation and that realize it's not just the devaluation of your savings that matters, it's also the devaluation of your unit of account that matters. I think all of that points to the importance of Bitcoin and the things that Bitcoin can fix.
Lyn Alden, a highly regarded macroeconomic expert and vocal advocate for sound money, stands out as one of the most influential and prominent Bitcoin enthusiasts in the field. With a profound understanding of macro analysis and a diverse background in finance and engineering, Alden possesses a comprehensive grasp of Bitcoin's underlying network brilliance and fundamentals. Through a myriad of interviews, podcasts, summits, conferences, fireside chats, as well as her tweets and newsletters, she consistently and eloquently communicates the vital role Bitcoin plays in addressing the inadequacies of the current global financial system. In a recent discussion with BTC Sessions, Alden delivered an exemplary performance by shedding light on the inherent injustices and harsh realities of the current global financial system. She underscored how the existing fiat system, centered around the US dollar, predominantly benefits investors in the US and the Western world, leaving the rest of the world's population at risk of abrupt wealth loss. Alden raised a crucial point about wealth distribution, revealing that over the past half-century, very few nations have transitioned from developing to developed or high-income status. In some cases, countries have regressed from developed to developing status. Despite global economic growth, the wealth gap has significantly widened, with the top 1% now possessing over 50% of the world's wealth, up from about 20% in the early 70s. Notably, a recent Oxfam report disclosed that a staggering 63% of the $42 trillion in new wealth created since 2020 flowed to the top 1%, leaving a mere 16% to be shared among the remaining 99% of the world's population. The clips from Alden's interview illuminate her perspective on the indispensable role of Bitcoin in the years ahead, emphasizing the urgent need for this digital asset in shaping the global financial landscape in 2023 and beyond.
Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to drop your comment and observations in the comment section below. Thanks and enjoy the video.
I just spent 6 weeks in Egypt. I go to Egypt every single year. My husband's originally from Egypt. And so as a family, we spend part of the year in the United States, part of the year in Egypt every year. The funny thing is that my family's small, his family's very big. So our friend center and our family center is actually centered in Egypt, even as our economic center is centered in the United States. And so Egypt is very important to us. And that gives me somewhat of a perspective because in the developed world, we have, say, on average, 7% broad money supply growth. It obviously was accelerated during COVID, but on average, multi-decade average, 7% annual broad money supply growth and the various implications that come with that. Whereas when you go to the developed world, you have much higher average rates of broad money supply growth. So, for example, in the fiat standard book, they cited 14% weighted average broad money supply growth among developed and developing countries, which means developing countries on average are going to be on the higher end of that, so generally double digits. In Egypt in recent years, over the past decades, it's been about 20% per year. So imagine that your unit of account is increasing in supply by 20% per year almost every single year. And you're in the position of a wage earner or a small business person trying to establish pricing for your various products. That's obviously a very hard environment to operate in. So I think that the majority of Bitcoin narratives or inflation narratives are based around the idea that your savings are being devalued. So as the supply increases, your liquid savings are devalued. But I think in many ways a equal or bigger problem is that the contracts and the wages of people are constantly being devalued. So when Egypt, for example, back in 2016 and again in 2022, at the behest of the IMF, which Alex Gladstein goes into greatly in his work, when they forced Egypt to devalue their currency relative to the dollar by half. Um, any Egyptian that does not get a 100% raise in that environment is now earning fewer dollar equivalents on an ongoing basis indefinitely compared to what they used to earn. And so not only were their liquid savings devalued, so it's not like you can just say, okay, you can put your money in real estate or Egyptian equities, which are not that great, or if you find a way to put your value into American equities and hold your value, the fact that your ongoing income is still devalued is really powerful. And if you survey people and say, hey, are you getting a 20% raise every year? Did you get a 100% raise the fact that you were devalued by 50%? The answer is, 99% going to be no. And to some extent, the same thing happens in developed countries, just at a less extreme scale. And so, for example, if CPI averages 2.5 or 3% per year over the long run, the realistic basket of things you want to buy that are not like fully, degraded by technology and things like that. So, for example, housing, healthcare, nutritious, like dense food, things like that, is probably increasing at 4 or 5% per year. If you're not getting that wage increase plus whatever your realistic seniority, higher productivity bonus is, you're being diluted constantly. So the the anchoring bias or the burden of proof is always against the person trying to keep up with inflation rather than the status quo, which is the employer or those that have the longer term contract. And I think that's a greatly underestimated thing globally.
In her recently published book, Broken Money, Lyn Alden takes a global perspective, delving into the myriad challenges that the current global fiat system presents. Within its pages, Alden offers her unique insights into how money profoundly impacts the lives of individuals and underscores the vast disparities within monetary systems across the world. She underscores how less popular and less valuable fiat currencies can lead to the erosion of savings and wages, particularly for those residing in regions where these currencies are in use. To illustrate this point, she highlights the example of the Venezuelan bolivar, which has suffered a staggering 99.998% loss in value against the US dollar over the past decade. This means that individuals who save in this currency essentially see their wealth vanish within a short span of 10 years. Alden's book also delves into the economic challenges faced by countries like Nigeria, where the inflation rate has soared to an 18-year high at 25.8%, and Egypt, whose pound ranks as one of the weakest performing currencies in 2023. Within this context, Alden brilliantly navigates the narrative towards Bitcoin, positioning it as a natural consequence of the ongoing evolution of money. She highlights how this leading cryptocurrency addresses the structural flaws and injustices inherent in the fiat system. In her discussion with BTC Sessions, she reiterates this point, emphasizing that Bitcoin serves as a solution to the myriad challenges of the fiat system, thereby mitigating the injustices that stem from it. Here's an additional excerpt from the interview for further insight.
When the unit of account is constantly working against you, and of course this only works in the current technology mix of that there's 160 different fiat currencies, more or less. The number changes every year because some of them fail, but basically, yeah, and you have 10 or 20 currencies that are relatively serious in terms of the fact that they degrade slowly over time and they have some degree of global acceptance. And then you have over 100, fiat currencies that are either pegged to the dollar and have no foreign acceptance and pegs can break, or they're totally free floating and they're constantly inflating at a faster rate. And the most damning thing is that if you look at the past 50 years under this current monetary system, the number of countries that have gone from developing to developed, you can count on like one hand, right? So Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, maybe a couple others, mostly in Asia, those are the only countries that have gone from literally developing to developed. There's no countries in Latin America that went from developing developed. In fact, there's some that arguably went from developed to developing. Um, the same thing's true for Africa. We have none that went from developing to developed. And almost every single developed country today developed back under a hard money standard, back under when gold was money. People were able to save money reliably and then deploy that capital. And in this current 50-year environment where developing countries are reliant on the dollar, the United States can harden the currency whenever they want to. They can soften the currency whenever they want to. And your currency, it's almost like a vicious cycle because if you can issue debt in your own currency, your currency is inherently more stable. If you can't issue debt in your own currency and you have to take out foreign debt, your currency is less stable, and so fewer lenders want to lend in your currency. It's like a vicious cycle. There's almost, other than very rare exceptions, it's hard to break out of that system. And that's the world we live in, and that's the global situation. And I find that both unjust. But I think that the more people realize the injustice of that situation, and they realize it's not just the devaluation of your savings that matters, it's also the devaluation of your unit of account that matters. I think all of that points to the importance of Bitcoin and the things that Bitcoin can fix over the very long run. I think that the unfortunate thing is that in the intermediate term, the best that Bitcoin can fix is your own personal savings. You can't expect that your unit of account is going to be fixed by Bitcoin. But in the long arc of time, if you picture a Bitcoinized world, the fact that you get benefits from going on Bitcoin now, but that you get greater benefits should the entire world become Bitcoin dominant. That's a whole nother step up. And I think that that's something that has to be. It's still poorly understood, and it's best to share that and educate people on these kind of injustice dynamics that exist in the current system.
In recent years, there has been a growing chorus advocating for a sound money system, one that ensures a more equitable distribution of wealth, offering everyone the same opportunity to prosper based on their merit rather than a system tailored to disproportionately reward a select few at the expense of the rest of the global population. A sound money system, particularly one centered around a digital currency built on a robust and decentralized network, represents a pathway to transition from our current centralized financial system to a more equitable, decentralized one that treats individuals worldwide fairly according to their contributions and efforts. Lyn Alden's interview and her insightful analysis of the existing global financial system raise important questions. Her perspective on the need for a sound money system and the potential of digital currencies to foster financial equality is a topic worthy of consideration. We welcome your thoughts and insights on Lyn Alden's views and her assessment of the current state of the global financial system. Please feel free to share your comments and observations below. Your input is valued in the ongoing discourse surrounding this critical issue. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.